Hello, everyone. I'm Yasmin Taj, editor, ETHRWorld International, and head branded content for the Economic Times. And with great pleasure, we welcome you all to another episode of the video interview series brought to you by ETHRWorld Southeast Asia in collaboration with Enparadigm on the theme Talent Management and Development for the Future of Work. The role of L&D and talent leaders has doubled down in the recent years, with the added responsibility of helping their respective organizations adapt to the constant changes and reimagining the future together. But what really makes learning effective and how it is driving businesses and employees to their true potential is one big question that is on the minds of leaders every day as they continue to prepare the workforce for a resilient future. How can leaders make learning a part of their company's DNA, and what does a sustainable learning journey look like? To decode how leaders can align the learning agenda to the overall business goals and identify some of the most sought-after forward-looking strategies to measure the success of reskilling and upskilling programs, we are here in partnership with Enparadigm to bring you this exclusive video interview series on the topic Talent Management and Development for the Future of Work. And for today's episode, we have the pleasure of having with us Aileen Tan, who's Group Chief People and Sustainability Officer at Singtel Group, Singapore, and also John Cherian, who's CEO of Enparadigm. With over 3 decades of experience in various leadership roles spanning multiple industries and geographies, Aileen is responsible for Singtel Group's overall strategic people and sustainability agenda. In her current role, she focuses on developing a purpose-led organization, championing sustainability, creating an inspiring culture, and making Singtel Group a place for amazing people to create an extraordinary impact. Under her leadership, Singtel has won numerous global and regional accolades for its leading people and sustainability practices. She is also a member of the Institute of Human Resources Professionals, IHRP Board, the Singapore University of Social Sciences Board of Trustees, the Health Sciences Authority Board, NTUC UCare Fund Board of Trustees, Minister of Finance's Vitals Advisory Panel, and MOM's Workplace Safety and Health Council in Singapore. We also have with us John Cherian, who's CEO of Enparadigm, who continues to make the complex simple with his belief in the power of learning at Enparadigm, a journey that brings together business thought, learning methodology, and user experience into our technology-driven learning platforms. The understanding of unconscious competence and how to help businesses get there is his field of permanent study. So thank you so much, Aileen and John, for joining us. It is an absolute pleasure to have you on this episode.
Thank you.
Great. Thank you.
Yeah. Great. Thank you. So looking forward to some great insights from the both of you. And without further ado, I'll jump right into my first question. And Aileen, I'd like to come to you first. So according to you, Aileen, what are the top trends that will be driving the talent management and development function this year especially? And how has L&D played a critical role in uplifting the talent development function in recent years?
Okay, it's very interesting that, this particular year itself, 2023, we are beginning to see a whole new world of for employees and for people, because as we step into what I call a world of endemic, okay, and obviously, this actually has a huge impact in terms of the future of work, and how does this future of work again, play out in the talent and learning space. So if you think about it, during the COVID period, so obviously we saw a period of what I call the Great Resignation, right? We saw a lot of people indirectly also experiencing what I call a quiet quitting. A quiet quitting. And then, along the way, we also saw the great hiring. So we saw many organizations start to pick up speeds, in terms of bring people on board. Okay, but in the entire equation, I think in recent time, we also start to see tech layoff. So, it's actually in a very, I would say that we're operating in a very volatile way, okay, very volatile world. And from that perspective itself, if you think about learning, we think about talent management, I would have to say that, the last couple of years has been a big challenge for HR practitioners like ourselves, and also for leaders, for employers. So from that perspective itself, when it talks about the learning and talent management program, we actually focus a lot more on, making sure that the the employees actually lead what I call work, or rather have a purpose-led, a lot more purpose-led. Okay, and from that perspective is that if you think about it, during the COVID time, many of us become a lot more what I call time rich. So we have a bit more time, which also means that we also start to think a bit deeper about our own personal aspirations. We also start to think about what is impactful, what is meaningful, and we start to also question, what's the largest purpose in life, at work, and why we are doing what we are doing. Now, from that dimension itself, we also start to see the breakthrough made in technology, especially around the area of AI. Okay, and with that also means that there is also a set of new skill sets, that arise during this period. And from that perspective, again, I said that this is keeping all our HR practitioners really, really busy, trying to figure out what I call the new future of workplace, the future of workplace, the future of workforce, and the future of work. Okay, so from that dimension itself, I do see that the talent and the L&D portfolio itself actually plays a very critical role. Okay, a very critical role in terms of ensuring, right, that moving forward, the entire organization does have the required capabilities to stay relevant. That's one part of it. But at the same time, it's also employees themselves do have the relevance, right? The skills relevance to stay employed in that sense, to stay employed. And I think those are very important considerations, in my opinion.
Great points, Aileen. I think I totally agree with you. The way the world of work is transforming so rapidly in a few months' time, it's something else, and in other few months, it becomes something else. And as the evolution happens, the workforce also needs to keep up. And this is where identifying the right skills, what skill sets are going to work for the business, finding purpose for the employees themselves is going to be very important, as you said, and aligning that business alignment with the goals and aspirations and purpose for the employees is going to be very, very important. John, I'd like to hear you about what are the trends that you are seeing come up, especially this year, and how is the talent management function evolving?
Yeah, I'd like to maybe take on a couple of issues that Aileen raised, right? So we went from the great resignation to the great hiring to tech layoffs, all in a span of maybe just less than a year. Yeah. Right. And that is very symbolic of how the world around us is moving now. Right. So a lot of things are accelerating. Maybe 10 years back, this would have taken 3, 4, 5 years to play out, right? And we see the whole thing playing out in just a few months, right? There's a lot of euphoria around talent and hiring, and suddenly there's a big downturn, and people are really very confused. Are we going up or are we going down, right? Yes. And a lot of confusion in there, right? And therefore, even for the talent development function, or the talent management function, one question for us to ponder about is, are we able to keep pace with this kind of rapid change? One of the aspects about this pace is that, it is quite intellectually intensive, right? Being able to figure out what skills are required for which roles, where each employee is on proficiency levels of those skills, right? And what learning has to be given for each employee. It takes a lot of intellectual effort, right? However, we are not in an era where we can afford the luxury of this today, right? And the talent management function also definitely needs to do, what Grab and Gojek have been doing for, for example, the world of food ordering, right? There was a time when we used to order food, when we used to call our friends, get references from family, know what restaurants are there around. It used to be a much slower process, right? And today, the whole thing, you have the landscape of food around you, you have the prices, you have the ratings. You can order food from anywhere in just 2 minutes, right? And the equivalent of that for the talent development function is very similar, right? Do we know all the different roles? Do we know all the different skills and capabilities required for those roles? And do we know where people stand in those roles on a real-time basis, right? And this is definitely where the talent management function is headed as well.
If I may,
yes, please.
Yeah, if I may just add one point, right? And it's interesting that you just mentioned around, how things has changed, right? Business model, living models, how they have changed, okay? And if you think about the skill sets of people, the skill sets of people. In fact, it was very interesting that as I reflect about it, even while I have been in the HR profession for the last 3 decades or so, even the skill sets needed to do a HR job 30 years ago versus 30 years now, and I have reason to believe the next 30 years will be fundamentally different. Okay, and if we reflect actually what actually has caused that big difference in terms of the skills required to be a good HR practitioner, okay, a lot has to do with, again, employee norms have changed, okay, right? And the other thing is really technology breakthrough. Okay, I think the technology breakthrough that we have seen over the last three decades, has been tremendous and has actually disrupted many of the old ways of doing. Now, if we use it as a premise, to imagine what is to come in the next 30 years, I have reason to believe that, again, technology norms, the technology development would still continue to play a very big part in terms of, how the job is to be done. Okay, so which also means that skills, interestingly, will continue to evolve. Okay, will continue to evolve, but there are also a set of skills that will kind of like be what I call the foundational. Okay,
evergreen.
Yes, so foundational. So we need to make sure that, especially we're in the talent space or in the learning space, we always got to still keep tab to what are the foundational skill sets, that we need to build among our employees so that they can continue to ride through the waves, ride the waves of technology changes.
Yes. That's a great point, Aileen. I totally agree with the way the rapid changes are happening. There has to be something that is fixed, right? That is there all throughout. Otherwise, the whole chaos will be too much for anybody to handle, organizations, leaders. And as you said, with the evolution, but if we have those foundational skills in place, which will help people ride through these waves of change, I think that's going to be very helpful. So Aileen, coming to that, you said the role of the HR leader has changed phenomenally. Technology has been coming up and it's been, kind of transforming the workplace very rapidly as well. What other changes have you seen, especially in the talent development function today? And are you facing anything particular in respect to learning mandate completion rate of employees in your organization?
Yes. So coming to learning is very interesting also, that you think about it pre-COVID, many of the learning, all right, was being powered through face-to-face learning.
Yes.
In fact, online learning, remote learning, it's not new. It was not new even prior to COVID. But I have to say that COVID actually is the best digital disruptor, because it brings about a big change in terms of habits and behaviors, right? And I think that what we saw is obviously the big role that digital learning, the big role that online learning will play in the years to come. That's my opinion.
Yes.
Okay, and we as especially we as talent and learning practitioner themselves, it's so important for us to be able to leverage on this technology platform, okay, to bring about the skills relevancy among our employees. I give you a case in point.
Yes.
Interestingly, I have been very actively learning. Okay, I'm picking up some new skill sets, myself on my own during my own personal time. And in fact, I was very interested in learning on a particular subject matter, which is around circular economy. And I do not have enough, what I call office time. During office hours time, I could not participate because I have loads of work that's happening in the daytime. However, I just realized that I can learn in the evening. And these are the courses that are actually available, online. They are being offered by some of the universities overseas. And the hours fit in just nicely for me. For instance, now, this is almost impossible in the past because you would have to travel to that country to learn in person. Versus now, I can actually learn it online after my office hours because of time zone difference. Now, this is actually what technology has bring about. We actually require many of us, the learning practitioner, to change our paradigm around how do we actually promote a lot more learning among our employees.
Absolutely. How do you make learning accessible, right, Aileen? That's the whole point, that, anytime, anywhere, learn at your self-paced learning. I think that's where the whole learning ecosystem is moving towards. John, what would you like to add to that? You must have spoken to a large number of corporates in the region, especially. What challenges have you seen that have been, that they have been speaking about recently?
Yeah, so I think what digital learning has really done well is to bring in the anytime, anywhere piece, right?
Yeah.
So I think that thing has been done really well, right? Now let's look at what is that's still not being done well enough with digital learning, right?
Yeah.
Number one, the element of human engagement, right? So what we've seen is that even if you make learning accessible anywhere, anytime, for a lot of our corporate learners, they don't stay engaged with the machine, right? And many times the learning experience is maybe very passive or very one way,
Yes.
right? Because what you're really doing is to watch a video or go through a set of slides and then try to learn through that process, right? And that process many times fails to develop any real skill, right? What you really get is an awareness of that particular skill area, but you are expected to really build skill once you come back to work, right? The need of the hour are systems where you can actually get your hands dirty right in the learning environment, a learning environment that gets personalized to your capability, personalized to the kind of skills that you need to develop, right? And also gives you the ability to kind of practice and play then and there, right, in the environment, as well as get immediate feedback from the environment. I see learning environments heading in that direction, right? Where from the current digital learning environment, we move to more active and experiential learning environments, right? Helping the learner see whether they're actually able to apply learning then and there, give feedback and help them iterate over that multiple times and improve skill proficiency, while they're in the environment, right?
Yeah.
Today, we see that a lot of corporates are willing to invest very heavily in employee development, right? What they would definitely want is some kind of a guarantee that spend will translate into, employee productivity, translates into business results, right? Therefore, learning, that's a gap that learning platforms definitely have to bridge today.
Yeah, I think the ROI on learning, be it for business or for an employee himself or herself, that is very, very critical in today's times. While you can give them that personalized experience, but how are they applying that learning to their job on a day-to-day basis is true testimony to how well the program is working. So that's important. Aileen, could you tell us a little bit about some of the initiatives you have introduced at Singtel to make the workflows, especially learning initiatives, to make the workplace more inclusive? And what are some newfound expectations of your diverse and hybrid workforce in terms of career development? I'm sure those have also evolved over time.
Yes, and good. And I think back in Singtel itself, we celebrate what we call a big culture, right? Whereby, we hope that our employees, have a strong sense of belonging, number one. And number two is really to be able to continue to make an impact, make a difference. And last but not least, obviously, to grow alongside with the organization, okay? And I think with that in mind, it's really important that we hope for our employees to bring the very best of themselves to work every day. Okay, how can they be the best and give their very best? That's very, very important. Now, obviously, the business will continue to evolve. And it's so important for us to be able to empower our employee to have a good, to be able to have a view in terms of what they need to learn, what they need to do to continue to stay relevant. Okay, not just for today, but also for tomorrow. Okay, and if you think about it from that perspective, I always say that when it comes to skills relevancy or obsolency, if you take a look, is anything I learned today, the relevancy is only for the next 5 years. In fact, if you think about it that way, which also means that every year things will become obsolete. The knowledge and the skills I have will become obsolete about 20%. That's how I think about it. So in 5 years, it's just become useless. So it's important for our employee to continue to learn. And that is actually very key. That's point number one. But of course, we also realize that technology is moving so quickly, right? And how can we continue to stay on top, all right, on top of really the latest development? Okay, and by the time, if we use our very traditional method, okay, very traditional method of doing what I call a learning needs analysis, all right, whereby we're going to speak to every single person about what your needs are and talk to the business itself. By the time we do our work and curate that needs itself, a couple of months have passed by, which also means that, again, with technology moving so quickly, it suddenly it can become irrelevant also very quickly. Okay, so now the question is really how can we move in a much more agile manner? Okay, and I have to say that today's technology actually allow us to be very quickly curate. Okay, what are some of the new skill sets that people need to have based on this kind of job profile? For instance, okay, there are many platforms that's able to do that, which really to give you a very quick perspective in terms of these are the skills you need to do this job. Okay, and we are seeing this emerging now. With this kind of nudging, very immediately, again, is that very quickly we will have a very good sense of saying that, okay, if I need to have this skill, where can I learn it? Now, as an organization, today we have very good learning platform, okay? Whether it's in person or through online, okay? And we work with different ecosystem partners. So, which also means that they can quickly, involve themselves to, or rather empower themselves to quickly learn, okay, through some of these different platforms that's being offered on the table, and pick it up and apply it on the job immediately as well. So what I would love to, or rather as an organization from our perspective, we actually now try to do a lot of work to shorten this cycle from needs analysis, right, all the way to picking up the skills through the various platforms and apply it into the job. So in the past, it takes months. Now we're trying to really shrink it down to a couple of weeks, you can get it done.
And that's a great point. But have the expectations of your workforce also changed? Are they also seeking something which is quicker? Like, they want skills to be identified faster for them to learn quicker, maybe learn in a blended way. Have you seen some changes there as well, Aileen?
Definitely. All right. In fact, what we have also seen is, which is something that we are promoting internally within Singtel as well, is really when we think about career options.
Yeah.
Like for instance, I'm a HR practitioner by training, by professional. Now, what are some of the career options that I may have? Yeah. You all know that I'm also doing sustainability. Yes. Now, I have two career options actually. So I can actually be a HR person, but I also can be a sustainability person, right? Yeah. Okay, so this is what we call a pie-shaped career, if you think about from a T-shaped career, moving into a pie-shaped career. So you have two possibilities. Now, when we're able to use some of our development opportunities to help our employees to develop this pie-shaped career, actually they have optionality, They have optionality to in terms of career mobility. They can either do this or do this job or do the other job. And that is important. And the reason why we are doing, promoting such a career is that we believe very strongly in creating what we call a professionals who have dual track, all right? And the dual track is not necessarily thinking about management or specialist job, but is to think about having two different functions, right? I can either be a sustainability person, for instance, or I can be a HR person. Now, I think what will be interesting is that for me to have another track, can I move to become, for instance, a general manager?
Yes.
Okay, and that actually promotes a lot of longevity in terms of career. And that is very key. And in fact, to be able to do that, our learning system must be very robust, because can you imagine that I will be asking for, or rather I'll be exploring a lot more around what is the skill sets needed for me to be successful as a HR person versus what the skill sets require for me to be a sustainability person, and the skill sets require of me to be a good general manager. For instance,
Yeah.
Yeah.
So curating that learning journey, I think that's where the point when you made on agility, how agile your learning ecosystem has to be so that it matches up to these three different kind of roles, creates skills for them, and then brings together a complete learning journey for an individual. Great thoughts. John, anything from your side on how the expectations of the hybrid workforce is changing when it comes to their own career development journeys, and how are organizations kind of matching up to that?
Yeah, so people definitely have an expectation that, things have to be delivered quickly to them, right? We are seeing that across industries in all facets of life, right? And a very similar ask is definitely there from the learning function.
Absolutely.
Right? And the challenge for the learning function is that many times the learning function's job is to build new capability, right? Capability that has not been there earlier, right? And by definition, that may be a slow process, right? It may take time to figure out what capability we have, what capability we need to add, and it takes its own sweet time, right? Having said that, like Aileen mentioned, there is so much that can be platformized, so much that can be productized today, and made into a much more structured approach towards, if this is the role that you need, right? What are the skills? Where are you on those skills? And what is the pathway to get you from where you are to where you need to be, right? There's definitely, a lot of systems are coming up in these areas, right? I think they're going to significantly accelerate the pace at which talent can get developed and become role ready or performance ready.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that is where the future of learning, the whole landscape, the ecosystem of learning, leaders, learning functions, learning platforms has to go where it's easy to curate, it's easy to identify, and it's easy to curate those journeys for your employees. So great thoughts on that. I'll ask you again, Aileen, how can we solidify the whole learning infrastructure to develop and nurture our existing talent? And how can we keep getting inputs from business as to what is working, what is not? What should a learning leader do that way?
Yes. I think at the end of the day, I feel that learning must translate to outcome, must translate to impact, right? So if it is very important that when we identify some of the learning and developmental areas, okay, it is very clear that the new skill sets, the new knowledge being acquired must be applied into the work. Okay, so you must apply. So it's not about getting a certificate. It's not about just going through the course itself. And I have gone through the slides. I've listened to what the lecturers or the presenters have shared earlier on. But it's really to digest what has been learned, and is to understand what are some of the key areas we can apply our learnings to, and then make a difference, make an impact. Now, if we go with that as a model, it is very important to constantly have conversations with the business leaders to challenge them, to ask them, okay, given these are some of the learning needs itself, why do you want the people to learn this particular area? The why question is important, right? So it's just not asking what do they need to learn. It's also a question of saying that why do they need to learn this? After they learn this, how are these learnings being translated into their work?
Yes.
And what kind of impact, right, this can deliver to our customers, to our stakeholders? So this is a very key question, in my opinion, that we have to constantly work with the leaders to do that. And that's one part of it. But at the same time, it's also to have a conversation with our employees themselves. Okay. It is also very important that our employee felt that through picking up new skills, by upskilling, by reskilling themselves, they are able to stay relevant. That's very important. And they are able to have a fulfilling career from perspective that they are growing. They are also making a difference. They are also making an impact.
Yes.
Okay. And of course, in the result, in the field, there is a sense of belonging within the entire organization. So the way I look at it is that, as I shared earlier on, in Singtel Group, we believe in what we call a big culture.
Yes.
Right. It is important. And And from a big culture perspective, is really around, having a sense of belonging, ability to deliver an impact, and of course, be able to grow alongside the organization. Now, when we speak about that, I always share with people, it's also about what I call a big act, okay, ACT, okay? Mm-hmm. Now, what is the act that I'm talking about? It is so important as an employee in the entire journey is how do we actually, accelerate a development pathway that we spoke about it earlier on, because, if it's going to take a long time, it is a problem. Okay, things move too quickly. Yeah. But at the same time is that as I think about accelerating a learning pathway, but the other thing is really around the next letter C is how do I curate a learning journey? All right. So when I'm able to curate that learning journey itself, whether it is through the academies, our learning academies, or through the learning online platform that we have, okay, I'm able to continue to learn. And last but not least is T, is when I go through that learning journey itself, I must be able to eventually transform my profession.
Nice.
Right? So to us, the act is also very important, whereby, helping our employee to continue to stay relevant.
I think the last point that you made, ACT, kind of summarized it perfectly well. How can you accelerate the whole learning process? How can you curate those kind of journeys, a learning journey which is relevant to business and employee both? And thirdly, how can you transform a profession by doing that? Great point on how you can solidify your learning ecosystem, Aileen. So thanks for sharing that. John, what are your thoughts? How can organizations or learning leaders, and Aileen very nicely pointed it out that you have to go and talk to the business leaders and find out why is it that they need learning? What is it that they need learning from? Identify that and then create a learning journey that comes up with impact and outcome. What are your thoughts on that? How can we do that?
Yeah, so from a learning leader standpoint, typically we will always think in terms of skills, competencies, proficiency levels, etc. Right? If you go and ask the business, they're going to say, you know what, my customer service executive faces these 30 challenges in the field every day. True. Right? What can you do to make them better in handling those 30 challenges?
Absolutely.
Right? And from an infra perspective, I think that is where I'm really very excited about what's happening to the space today, right? We are seeing AI being able to really move the needle in this space, right? There's a lot of generative AI today, which is actually able to come out with many different situations and scenarios that people are facing on their field in different roles in different industries, right? And that's helping us go along that ACT journey, right? The ability to accelerate and bring out the kind of environments or content that people need, right? Help customer service executives in this example, navigate those 30 scenarios, right? So there's a lot of generative AI to help you generate the raw content. There's a lot of what I call immersive AI that helps you immerse the learners into a real-time environment, right? Where they can actually acquire skills, get real-time feedback, right? And by going through that and getting feedback from the environment, it really helps them also go along the transformation journey a lot faster, right? So we see that there's a lot of change today, especially over the last couple of years. A lot of technology has come out which can significantly accelerate this journey.
Absolutely agree. I think that's the whole thing. It's about, again, figuring out what are the challenges that that your employees are facing. What is it that they need to go to the next level or remain relevant in their roles as they are, and then create and curate journeys accordingly and accelerate the whole process. Thanks for sharing that, John. My final question now to the both of you, and Aileen, I'd like to hear you first. What, according to you, are going to be the top 3 skills that will power the future of work?
Good questions, top 3 skills. I have to say that I never thought about it from that dimension. That means the top 3 skills or top 1 skill. Like I was sharing with you earlier on, I think there is a set of foundational skills that will never go away. Okay, and that is very important to make sure that everybody have a set of foundational skills. Whether like good planning skill sets, good organizing, good some of the good, especially the leader, you need to have strong leadership skills, problem solving skills. So those project management skills, I think those are foundational. I think it should stay, okay? And it is always relevant. So far, based on my experience, 30 years ago, I learned those skills. I think 30 years later, it's still keeping me relevant. And in fact, I have to get better at dealing with it. Okay, that's one part of it. Now, the other set of skill sets that I think it is important, in fact, I think will play up a lot more, is around what I call the softer side of things, especially around the ability to empathize a lot better, the area around being authentic, the area around being a bit vulnerable, because, in the past, we always want to be A student, right? But moving forward with things changing so quickly, in fact, we're bound to make mistakes, and we have to know how that A students are not necessarily a person who score 100 upon 100, but A students could be a person who actually makes some mistakes, learn from it, and become better. Now, this is changing a paradigm, so it's a bit different. And I feel that, these are some of the new skill sets that we have to learn. Now, the other skill set I thought is important, in my opinion, is the concept of unlearning. Okay, it is actually easier said than done, in my opinion. Okay, in order to share with you, I actually play the keyboard, right? And but obviously, given work, I stopped playing for a long time. Okay, and I have to go back and learn it. But when I went back to relearn how to play the keyboard again, obviously I could get on into it quite easily. But unfortunately, I have picked up some old habits in the past. And I have to unlearn those old habits, bad habits, so that I can pick up new habits, right? New skill sets. But it is so difficult. Actually, it is so difficult. Now, so that's why I say unlearning is actually something that we have to learn a lot more. And it calls for me, again, to be a lot more vulnerable, to accept that, this is not the way. We need to pick up new areas. I think those are important as well. So of course, I think, the other skill sets is, I guess, is really around the area of, I think it's being agility is actually very important. Okay, agility, the area around resilience is also very important, because thing is moving very, very quickly. Okay, and the ability to learn how to implement things, execute, knowing that it's not perfect, and knowing that you have to fine tune along the way. I have to say that it's actually a skill set, all right? And, how can you make sure that you're able to recover quickly if it doesn't work well? How can you make sure that, when it's a mistake, how do you repair quickly and you moved on and you evolve? And I think this is a skill set, all right, which is the agility portion. But the resilience portion is saying that it's going to be a lot more trial and error, and you can get burnt out very, very quickly. Okay, and you can give up also very, very quickly. So how can you stay resilient, right? And still continue to adopt a very positive mindset, as you embrace the future. So I just name a couple of them. I wouldn't say that they are the top three, but there are things that these are some of the skills that come to mind very quickly.
Yeah. I think, Aileen, what I loved is that while the foundational skills are important, technical skills are important, you really focus on the human skills that are going to remain there, no matter how fast the world keeps changing. These are the human skills that will kind of differentiate us as human beings from machines and help us become better at the job that we're doing. So great skills that you pointed out, Aileen. John, what about you? What are the top 3 skills for you?
Yes, I think if I were to maybe summarize what Aileen said, I would summarize the most important skill really as, learning how to learn.
Yeah.
Right. Because if you can do that, then, that's a meta skill that you need, right? If you know what to learn and then learn how to learn that, then obviously that puts you in a very powerful spot, right? And I think one thing that becomes really, really important for you as an individual is, your ability to have that empathy for things around you, right? Now here, I'm not talking about empathy as a, purely from relating to people, and, I'm not talking from a sympathy perspective here, right? And talking about understanding who your stakeholders are around you, what their needs are, how they think, right? And being able to put yourself in their shoes.
Yeah.
Because most of the time, the work that you're doing is really about solving something for them, right? Or meeting need for them. And these may be your internal stakeholders in the organization. They may be your customers, and in personal life, they may be your family. So we are surrounded with people all around us, right? So empathy in terms of being able to really put yourself in the shoes of other people, that again becomes an extremely, extremely important skill, right?
Absolutely, yeah.
The next thing that I would maybe call out and pick is your ability to process what's happening in the world around you, right? Make sense of what is happening. So we'd like to call it sense making, right? Can you make sense of what is happening around you, and can you filter out maybe signal from noise, right? And there are a lot of related skill sets there when you're trying to look at filtering signal and noise, right? Because like Aileen mentioned, a lot of things are moving very fast, right? So there's a lot of chaos around you, a lot of noise around you. So how are you going to be able to filter, right? And for you to do that effectively, your ability to read data, your ability to analyze data, right? Your ability to then come out with some kind of simple insights around that, and then move on to therefore what are the actionables. All these are related skills in that whole frame of mind, right? I think these are the top 3 things that I would like to talk about.
Yeah, I think I love the point on learning how to learn. I think that's a very basic thing to know. If people, and Aileen also pointed it out, if you could unlearn some of the basics that you already had and relearn, I think you're already on the path to progress, is what I feel personally also. Because when you become rigid, nothing works out. It's about being agile, being as resilient, learning on the go, basically, right? Every day is going to be a new learning experience. So on that note, thank you so much, Aileen. Thank you so much, John, for the wonderful conversation. What I hear from the entire conversation today is the workforce will continue to evolve. It will continue to be very chaotic, maybe going forward also. But it is upon us on being how agile, how resilient are we as organizations, as leaders, as employees? How can we align our learning journeys, curate journeys for our employees, which are relevant based on their own personal purpose-led needs and also the business needs of the organization? That alignment, that curation, and that acceleration is going to be the way forward when it comes to creating a learning ecosystem that will remain relevant even for the future. So on that note, once again, Aileen and John, thank you so much for your time. It was a pleasure hosting you for this episode.